A social worker wants to estimate, the proportion of U.S. population over age 16 who provide elder care, that is unpaid care for someone with a condition relating to aging to others. What size sample should be obtained if the social worker wants an estimate within 3 percentage points of the true proportion with 95% confidence? Now, there are two ways that you can estimate sample size. One is to estimate the sample size necessary, assuming the sample proportion is some value based on a previous study, say. And so that's what we're doing in part A. We're going to use the 2015 estimate of 16%. And then the other method for estimating sample size is to say, you know what, I really don't know anything about what has been going on in the past, so I'm not going to use any prior estimates. StatCrunch can handle both. When you don't use prior estimates, then you assume that P is 0.5. Okay. So here's how go ahead.
And the way it's written in our homework, so it wouldn't give us.
It'll be written exactly like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
All right, so let's do this in StatCrunch. I'm going to shrink this down so I can grab all my content that I need. So to do this in StatCrunch, you're going to go Stat, Proportion Stats, One Sample, and you're going to select Width Sample Size. W-I-D-T-H, Width Sample Size, as in width of the interval, sample size. And here's what we need to enter in the dialog box is your level of confidence. So we said we want 95% confidence, so we enter 0.95. Target proportion. The target proportion is whatever your prior estimate was equal to. So for us in part A, we said, hey, this number was 16% back in 2015, so that's what I'm going to use this go around. The width is sometimes a little tricky for folks. The width is twice the margin of error. Twice the margin of error. So if I look here, I want to estimate within 3 percentage points. That tells me my margin of error is 3%, which as a decimal is 0.03. The width of your interval is 2 times your margin of error. So 2 times 0.03 or 0.06. Think of it another way. The width is how far it is from your lower bound to your upper bound.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And so here my width is 0.06. Now I have all the information I need in my dialog box. I just go ahead and click compute. And it tells me my sample size needs to be 574. And so if I survey 574 folks, I will estimate the proportion of Americans 16 or older that need to provide some sort of elder health care. This is part A right here, and we're getting that N is 574. And then if I don't use any prior estimates, now your target proportion is just going to be 0.5.
Okay.
So if you don't have any prior estimates, just make your target proportion 0.5. And now you can see the impact of not having a prior estimate is my sample size shoots up pretty high. So this one here is part B, and we're getting that N is 1,068. It's worth noting that most surveys done by Gallup, the Pew organization, so on and so forth, where they're estimating population proportions, the sample size tends to be between 1,000 and 1,100. And this explains why that's the case. Most of those surveys have 95% levels of confidence. They don't necessarily use prior estimates, and therefore to get an estimate with a margin of error of 3%, which is what they're typically looking for, they have to survey about 1,000 to 1,100 folks. So that explains why those surveys are based on a survey of 1,000 adult Americans, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
It's so they can get their margin of error of 3% or so.
Oh.